So, hi guys, welcome to Counterpoints. My name is Connor. I'm a science fiction, political, and philosophy nerd, a Marine Corps and law enforcement veteran. I love talking about politics. I love talking about science fiction. I love talking about law enforcement. I love talking about the military. I love talking about geopolitics. I love talking about all this stuff. But the truth is, in the modern era, there are a lot of bad actors who are saying wildly stupid things, and they deserve to be called out. Some of these figures are really popular, both in mainstream politics and in alternative media politics. And so I started working with the Valor Media Network, one, to just stream, entertain people, have a good time, check stuff out, but also to call out some bad actors. And NYC Falcon, thank you for saying hello to Zach. I'm sure he appreciates it. All right. So Charlie Kirk is somebody who started Turning Points USA, a college-oriented organization that mobilizes young people in order to support the conservatives. I think that he has jumped from a normal conservative, fiscal conservative, and mild social conservative to now he knows that in order to get attention, he has to be an extremist. And so as a result, some of his social conservative takes, some of his fiscal conservative takes are insane. And he will dabble in the dissident right, where he will say some things that are kind of like dog whistly every now and then. And I think it's in order to pander to the further right than him perspectives. And so as a result, we want to watch him, we want to break him down, and we want to see what he's right about and see what he's wrong about. And then Jonah Boy says correctly, Zach, he's a great guy. He's tremendous. He's a tremendous guy. I hear a lot of good things. Many are saying great things about Zach. A lot of people are saying that Zach is a great guy. And then Christopher Blair says he got trolled by the Groypers, lost clout, and then went radical MAGA. Yeah, that feels like he might disagree with that assessment, but your statement totally passes a vibes check from me. So I'm going to open up a new note. We are going to check what the young, but not so young, I think he's around my age, Charlie Kirk has to offer the world of politics and alternative media political commentary. Let's take a look.
And I thoroughly enjoyed the research that he did regarding this lie that the media is peddling. It's Will Chamberlain, senior counsel at the Article 3 Project. Will, great to see you. Will, if you were just to watch the mainstream media, let me read the headline from The Atlantic. Quote, the Trump administration has acknowledged that it grabbed a Maryland father with protected status and mistakenly deported him to El Salvador, but claims that courts are powerless to order his return. On campus yesterday, a young man shows up to the microphone screaming, saying, Charlie, they deported a U.S. citizen. I said, no, they did not. Will, what are the facts here? You did all the research. You looked through court documents. What is the truth?
All right. Well, there is administrative error, but they deported an El Salvadoran citizen back to El Salvador who crossed illegally in 2012, was detained in 2019, and then tried to claim asylum. He never had asylum. So his protected status, quote unquote, was not that he couldn't be removed from the country. He could. He was a removable alien. The only protection he had was being removed to El Salvador in particular. So there was this underlying flaw, but even so, the idea that there's some profound injustice here, that's just wrong.
But so help me understand, though, the way that the media is framing it. Here's this poor father, he never should have brought up. What does administrative error mean? There is also evidence that he was part of MS-13. According to Stephen Miller, there was some MS-13 ties. So just, look, when you're running a big operation, errors happen. Let's just be honest. What does administrative error mean?
Well, it just means that they should have gone through a process to try and get this withholding of removal revoked. The reason this withholding of removal was granted is because he came up with this sob story in 2019 where he said, if you send me back to El Salvador, I am likely to be persecuted, maybe even murdered by the 18th Street Gang, which is with MS-13 one of the big gangs in El Salvador. But in the interim, Nayib Bukele has become the president of El Salvador and has effectively punished and has effectively done something to actually, deal with these gangs. And as a result, El Salvador is a safe country now. And the underlying reason why he couldn't be deported there is gone. So the Trump administration could have simply gone to court, got his withholding of removal revoked, and had him sent back. So even though they didn't do that, and therefore there's this administrative error, they should have waited to remove him, the end result would have ultimately been the same. He'd have ended up back in El Salvador.
Okay. So let's go ahead and pause. I don't have a problem with this so far, but I do want additional details. And if there's something like unfair in the MSNBC or NBC news article, then I will bring it up just so we can steelman our opponents, right? Just because we're critical of people doesn't mean that we lie about them, right? At least not. I don't know about y'all. So hold on. Let me find, where are you guys? Here we go. There you are. There you are. Okay. So let me pull. Jonah Boy says, Zach, he's a great guy. Tremendous. I hear a lot of good things. Many are saying great things about Zach. That's true. He got trolled by the Groypers. Yep. Hello, homies. Hello, Spider-Man. Thank you for dropping by. Please remember to like the stream. It is greatly appreciated. And let me find the NBC article. So this is who they're talking about. Camar Abrego Garcia was removed to El Salvador because of an administrative error Monday court filing. So hold on. Is this the gay guy? No, you cannot be serious. Hold on. The U.S. government accidentally deported a man to El Salvador because of an administrative error, landing him in a notorious mega jail and leaving him stuck there in legal limbo. According to Kilmar Abrego Garcia, came to the United States from El Salvador in 2011 and is a legal resident protected by a 2019 court order that prevented him from being sent back to his home country. But in court papers filed Monday, the government admitted that on March 15th, although ICE was aware of his protection from removal order to El Salvador, Abrego Garcia was removed to El Salvador because of an administrative error. Hold on, let's see if he ends up in CCOT, okay? That's like the main thing. Abrego Garcia lives in Maryland with his wife and 5-year-old child who is autistically... Oh, this is different. This is different. Okay. Abrego Garcia lives in Maryland with his wife and 5-year-old child who is autistic and intellectually disabled. The couple both work full-time, the filing says. NBC Washington first reported the deportation and The Atlantic first reported the administrative error. Garcia's deportation comes as the Trump administration continues to deport hundreds of people to El Salvador, many of them from Venezuela, and almost all bound for the maximum security terrorist confinement center, also known by its Spanish acronym CCOT. The deportation appears to coincide with the departure of 3 plane loads of people to El Salvador on March 15th. Lawyers for some of those who were deported said they were falsely accused of gang affiliations because of their tattoos. Garcia, his wife Jennifer Vasquez Sura, and their legal team filed a lawsuit in the U.S. District Court in Maryland last week, calling for Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem to ensure his return to the United States and for the government to stop paying El Salvador to keep him in prison. They sent him to CCOT. They sent him to CCOT. The government said the U.S. courts do not have jurisdiction to seek his release. Salvadoran government images show masked guards marching crowds of men with shaven heads. To her shock, Garcia's wife learned her husband was being detained only after she spotted him in an image in a news article. Will Chamberlain, you lying dipstick. You piece of garbage. Okay? So hold on. Will Chamberlain, I want you guys to understand this because basically I was not expecting to get into the information this quickly. I wasn't expecting them to be this bad of propagandists. I genuinely wasn't. I promised you. I was ready to concede so quickly if Kellar, Abrego, whatever his name is, right? If he had been deported to El Salvador and then was walking around on the safe El Salvadoran streets, then I would have been like, okay, this is a good point, right? But they deported him to CCOT, which was the one place that is currently holding all of the people that he was afraid of. So Will Chamberlain makes a valid technical point saying that his detention didn't prevent him from deportation. It only prevented him from deportation to El Salvador. And El Salvador is a safe country now. So realistically, he could have gone home, no big deal. What he omits from this story is the fact that this guy was here, maybe married, maybe boyfriend, girlfriend, no idea, has a child that he helps provide for in the United States. And then not just that, the whole reason why he was granted a level of asylum in the first place was specifically because he was in fear of the 18th Street Gang. Guess who he's currently incarcerated with? The 18th Street Gang. And guess who will not fight for his release? The United States of America. So he's speaking facts while lying through omission. I did not expect to find this quickly. So let's see if Will Chamberlain mentions any of these details in his continued coverage. What a-hole. And by the way, these are conservatives. These are social conservatives. These are people who are allegedly looking for people who are economically productive, who can contribute to society, who are capable of taking care of their families, et cetera, et cetera. They just split up a family for reasons that they can't articulate and deported him to the most dangerous place that he possibly could be.
That's right. And so thank you for that explanation. Let's go to Stephen Miller also talking about this. And it's very important. And look, you got to be so meticulous here. The Trump administration understands that. But it's not as if they scooped up an American citizen or a green card holder. The media keeps on calling him a Maryland dad. According to the court documents, he has MS-13 ties. And he applied for asylum, testifying that he fears returning to El Salvador because the 18th Street gang was targeting him and threatening him with death because of his family's business, and also has ties to human trafficking. Let's play cut 212.
Jesse, you and I have never received in our lives as much positive press as this MS-13 gang member has received. We couldn't get headlines like that if our lives depended on it. Fact one, what do you do with illegal aliens? You deport them. Fact two, he's an MS-13. What do you do with illegal aliens who are also in a transnational terrorist organization? You deport them more quickly. Oh, and on top of that, he's implicated in human trafficking. Deport, deport, deport. This is who they're going to bat for. What are we supposed to do? Buy the guy a house, get him some free health care, maybe let him run for Congress?
If you're a homeowner, you need to listen to this. Wednesday.
Oh, as he puts an order on it. Hold on. So let's read this. Listen, I don't trust Stephen Miller. I'm happy to review any evidence that he is willing to share with the class. I genuinely am. If they have the capacity to show me evidence that he's a member of MS-13 and that he was involved in human trafficking, I'm 100% down with it. But these dudes lie like they breathe, okay? So let's take a look at this. The NBC News, obviously left-wing leaning, so know the bias or whatever. How a Chicago Bulls hat led to a Maryland dad being mistakenly shipped to an El Salvadoran prison. Kilmar Abrego Garcia was accused by police of being an MS-13 gang member in part for his clothing. Police believed Kilmar Abrego Garcia was a member of the MS-13 gang for two reasons. He was wearing a Chicago hat and hoodie, and an unnamed informant had told them so. The two pieces of evidence were not enough to keep Abrego Garcia in federal immigration custody in 2019 when authorities in Maryland arrested him, according to the court filing last month. Nearly 6 years later, they appear to be the basis for shipping him to a foreign mega prison with no legal recourse. Abrego Garcia, a 29-year-old father of three and protected legal resident who had lived in Maryland since 2011, is originally from El Salvador. Right here, it's 2025, okay? He's been here since 2011. Has he committed any crimes in the past 14 years? You think that they would be able to bring that up if that was actually a thing. Was deported to a high-security jail in El Salvador on March 15th. The Trump admin admitted last week that his deportation was an administrative error due to the protected status, but refused to commit to bringing him home. The administration challenged a judge's Friday ruling that the government bring Abrego Garcia back to the United States. It argued that Garcia was a member of MS-13, citing the accusation from 2019, and said he posed a threat to national security. He's been here for 14 years. They're not saying that he's committed any crimes. He's a father of three. He was accused of being a member of MS-13 for wearing a hat, and they don't have any other evidence that I know of. I'm happy to review the evidence. I am happy to eat crow. I am so happy for Charlie Kirk and for Will Chamberlain and for whoever the bald guy that was just talking, something Miller, whatever his name is. I am so happy for them to show me that he is an MS-13 gang member and that he was participating in human trafficking. And I will get on the plane and hold Abrego Garcia's hand while I will drag him into CCOT myself if that is the case. But until you show me that evidence, I legitimately do not believe you. While there is no doubt a public interest in preventing aliens from being wrongfully removed, there is an overwhelming public interest in not importing members of violent transnational gangs into this country, lawyers from the Justice Department wrote in a filing on Friday. But did they substantiate their claim? The argument echoed claims made repeatedly by some of the administration's highest-ranking officials in recent days, including Vice President J.D. Vance. What is it about congressional Democrats that get more angry at deporting violent gang members than they do at the victims of those violent gang members? Has Abrego Garcia committed a crime in the past 14 years? Arrested in 2019, based in part on Chicago Bulls hat. On March 28, 2019, Abrego Garcia and 3 other non-citizens were apprehended by local authorities while soliciting work outside of a Home Depot in Hyattsville, Maryland. They committed the crime of looking for day jobs, according to Abrego Garcia's initial petition filed last month. The court document stated that upon his arrest, authorities with the Prince George County Police Department accused Abrego Garcia of being affiliated with MS-13. By the way, doesn't MS-13 get a ton of tattoos? After he repeatedly denied being affiliated with the notorious international crime group and did not provide officers with information about other gang members, authorities turned Abrego Garcia over to ICE, the petition states. Prince George's County police officers then produced a gang field interview sheet for ICE that explained that the only reason to believe plaintiff Abrego Garcia was a gang member was that he was wearing a Chicago Bulls hat and a hoodie, and that a confidential informant advised that he was an active member of MS-13 with the Westerns clique. If he is an active gang member, why is he begging for a day job on the side of the road? Abrego Garcia then made multiple attempts to obtain additional information from local authorities to support the allegation that he was a gang member, but was denied several times, the court document states. He simultaneously applied for asylum, arguing that gang members would torture or kill him if he was sent back to his home country, according to the court document. Awesome. Good job, guys. Seriously. Seriously. I don't believe them. I've seen J.D. Vance lie about things. I've seen Stephen Miller lie about things. I don't believe them. If they want to substantiate it, I will eat crow. If they say, nope, actually, here is violent crime that he committed in the United States. Here's violent crime that he committed in El Salvador. Here's his gang affiliations. Here are his friends. Here's the human trafficking that he was participating in. I will be happy to eat crow. I don't see that here. Let's take a look at the human trafficking allegations. Abrego Garcia, human trafficking. Defends deportation. Okay. The Trump admin has defended its deportation of Kilmar. Due process does look different. I guess I have to read it because otherwise I'm reading it silently and you guys don't appreciate what I'm doing. The Trump admin has defended its deportation. A Maryland man mistakenly sent to a prison in El Salvador, saying due process does look different for people they say are members of gangs, which they haven't substantiated. Abrego Garcia was arrested and deported in March despite having been granted protection by an immigration judge in 2019, preventing him from being sent to El Salvador. The Justice Department has admitted the deportation was an administrative error. Argued in papers that he is a member of the criminal gang MS-13. Okay, I'm not looking for the argument. I'm looking for the evidence. In an interview with All Things Considered, guest host and NPR White House correspondent Asma Khalid on Sunday, Tricia McLaughlin, Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs of the Department of Homeland Security, said the Trump admin deportations are legal. I'm going to look for human trafficking. Tricia McLaughlin. Well, that actually is just not true. An immigration judge reviewed evidence and determined that he actually is a verified member of MS-13. Lie, based off of what we've read so far. There's also intel reports that he's involved in human trafficking, where I would like due process. Show us. I'm happy to change my tune. I'm happy to change my tune. If he was engaged in human trafficking and if he is a confirmed member of MS-13, I am happy to change my tune. But so far, it looks like what they base this off of is him getting arrested outside of a Home Depot looking for work while wearing a Chicago Bulls hat. So I think the bottom line for American people and for those who are listening today is that an individual in question who's an MS-13 gang member, haven't proven it, he should be behind bars, haven't shown that he's committed a crime in the past 14 years, whether it be in El Salvador or in a U.S. detention facility. He should not be on the streets of America. And to remind listeners, MS-13 is a gang that murders, rapes, traffics, drugs. They maim for sport. They're individually we do not want in our country, especially those who are here illegally. Okay. I don't know I don't know what else to tell you guys. I think the Trump admin, pending new information, they're lying to cover up their F up. I think that Charlie Kirk is trying to take a dumb college student talking about a citizen being deported and trying to turn that into something that is not. I have another story that I guarantee you he hasn't addressed, that we will address momentarily. And then he brought somebody on in order to substantiate, what would you call that? Technical facts about the case without digging into the evidence. So let's get past his commercial. And let's see if he says anything of merit after this. Already, Charlie Kirk is a liar. Like already, he's lying through omission in reference to this case. Let's see if it gets any better with time.
Deportation plan is lawful. It might not be something that the media likes. What is your take on the deportations and the media's coverage of it?
Oh, they already moved on. They already moved on to deportations in general. I don't care. Charlie, whoever's listening, conservatives who watch this, liberals who watch this, progressives who watch this, I am a rhino Republican. I am a moderate Republican. I am a never Trump Republican. You will never find me arguing that we shouldn't arrest and deport human traffickers, violent gang members, drug traffickers, if I didn't say human trafficking earlier, vice versa, right? You will never find me saying that we shouldn't arrest or deport these people. What you will find me saying is that taking a man who already has 3 children, who's been in our country for 14 years and hasn't committed another crime, because I'm assuming that if he committed another crime, you would tell us about it. That's what I'm assuming. And then his connection to MS-13 was where he was wearing a Chicago Bulls hat while he was detained while looking for day labor outside of a Home Depot. That is not enough for me. And so if you want me to believe you about anything and to not accuse you of lying, then you should probably substantiate the MS-13 claim. You should probably substantiate the human trafficking claim. You probably shouldn't take a bunch of variables that have a basis in truth and then use them to cover up lies. Okay? That is my assessment so far. I challenge you because I care about the truth more than I care about being correct. If any Republican or conservative who watches this segment has evidence that this gentleman is a member of MS-13 that we did not review on stream, I want that evidence. If you have any evidence that he was involved in human trafficking that we weren't able to find on stream, I want you to bring me that evidence. I don't think you're going to be able to find it, and I don't think you would care to look because you probably don't care. You broke up a family. You deported a man to the one place that he shouldn't be. He's surrounded by the one people on the planet that a judge said he shouldn't be around because it was a threat to his life. And then you lied about the facts of the case in order to cover the butt of the incompetent administration who is currently hurting and killing people. It's repulsive. It's genuinely repulsive. My taste for disgusting things is not fully sated, so we'll move on to the next segment. But I am shocked at how flimsy that coverage was and how easy it was to take it apart. HJK says, so enraged, 75% of those men had no criminal record. This admin is all optics. Apparently. HJK further says, how do you get arrested for wearing a hat? That's messed up. Literally for suspicion of doing like day labor, like which panhandling can be a crime. So he got detained for panhandling, not so he could just take money, but so he could do day labor. And then because he was wearing a piece of clothing that's associated with gangs. By the way, MS-13 is often associated with having tattoos. They don't have any documented tattoos. Otherwise, they would tell us about it. And I almost guarantee you that if he had committed a crime in the past 14 years in the United States, they would be telling us about that too. But they're not because they're lying. I'm happy to be proven wrong. Sapien Green says, if a credible rumor was started that J.D. Vance was born outside the U.S., I wonder how long it would take for Trump to disavow him. Yeah. Like the Obama birther movement, right? NYC Falcon says you won't find evidence because there isn't any. Man did not have his due process. Agreed. Jonah Boy says they'll say anything to cover their butts. I mean, listen, prove us wrong. Prove chat wrong. Prove me wrong. Okay. I will be happy to be proven wrong. All right. Charlie Kirk ends students supporting the endless Ukraine war machine. This is again where I feel like this dude is a propagandist and a moron, but let's see if there's any meat on the bone. Okay.
Doing this Easter to celebrate with your family. Our good friends at Angel Studios have an incredible movie coming out this Easter called The King of Kings, an animated story of the life of Jesus, featuring an all-star cast including Oscar Isaac, Forrest Whitaker, and more. King of Kings brings the story of Jesus to the big screen for a whole new generation. Become a premium member in the Angel Studios Guild. Get 2 free tickets to see King of Kings and join the Angel Guild as a premium member at angel.com/Kirk. Check out King of Kings in theaters this Easter.
And this is symbolic Christianity to me. If he cared about truth, he would have investigated the actual story of Abrego Garcia. If he cared about human dignity, he would investigate the real story about Abrego Garcia. If he cared about us knowing the truth, then he would have presented evidence. So, yeah.
Welcome.
All right. So, in a video before, you've stated, why should we hate Russia? Do you believe that the invasion of the sovereign state of Ukraine is not enough to at least view them with anger and want to avoid a policy of appeasement through support of Ukraine?
First of all, nice to see you.
Yeah.
Great to be here.
It's kind of
yeah, what Russia did was wrong, without a doubt.
Yeah. So do you not believe that we should continue monetary support to Ukraine?
No, I mean, a lot of countries do things wrong. That doesn't mean we should be involved, right? I mean, Syria right now is killing a bunch of Christians. It's getting almost no press attention. There's a civil war right now in Africa that's getting almost no press attention. Not every conflict warrants American involvement. And right now, President Trump is trying to broker a peace settlement between Russia and Ukraine, which is the right move. And our perspective as conservatives is as follows. The amount of money we spent on Ukraine is about $300 billion so far. And during Biden, we didn't spend any money on our own southern border while we were being invaded on a daily basis. President Trump is instead saying American borders matter a lot more than the borders of Russia and Ukraine.
So I definitely agree that the president of the United States should focus on America first. But I just feel that, and I agree that we should, honestly, I agree that Europe needs to up their spending for the defense of Ukraine because it's right on their border.
He's being too charitable already.
No matter where it is in the world, supporting somebody who I would believe is doing the morally right thing is the right thing to do.
Okay, so that's a fair position. I guess the question is, at what point would you consider to be a success? Because right now, Russia has more territory than it otherwise would have if we would have had a ceasefire a couple weeks in. When is it enough money to spend? We're at $300 billion. I mean, we're not willing to send U.S. troops, right? I mean, that would probably be a fair line.
Yeah. 100%.
So what would success look like?
That is a really hard question. I guess just the thing that I think of first is there's like that fear of, I think that.
Hold on. So let's break this down because this dude, his brain has been poisoned by rhetoric and you know, they talks about like postmodernism. The postmodern neo-Marxists are coming for us all. Meanwhile, he has like a postmodern usage of language where it's not about the words that you actually use in order to represent truth. He's using rhetoric in order to try to win an argument. So let's break this down real quick. So he concedes that invading Ukraine is wrong. This isn't a past wrong. This is an active wrong. Russia is still in the presence of invading, taking additional territory. So it's a moral wrong that's ongoing. A lot of places do things wrong. Okay, that has nothing to do with this. The Syrian leader is massacring Christians. That's also bad. If you want to talk to me about how we need to reel in Syria in order to stop the massacres of minority groups in Syria, I of course would agree. If you ask me whether or not we needed to use our soft power or hard power in order to get Syria to not massacre people, I would 100% agree. There's civil wars in Africa. I'm assuming that he's referring to Sudan. Okay, we should also use our soft power and our hard power to minimize the deaths in Sudan as well. Now, we're only going to have limited influence in certain places, but that doesn't mean that you don't use the power that you have. Also, when it comes to Ukraine, they're in Europe. Europe has a long-standing history with the United States of America. They also have a long-standing opposition to Russian aggression, right? So we already have that. And then on top of that, the Ukrainians, they're trying to be more liberal economically, more liberal socially. They're trying to defend their territory that's being wrongfully invaded. And so therefore, they would be a natural principled ally of the United States of America. And 300 billion, I think half of that is like effectively equipment. How much equipment have we given? It's like old equipment. So let's go to Google. How much of U.S. aid to Ukraine is equipment? So $130 billion is the first thing that pops up. Let's find the word equipment real quick. That way we're not getting it wrong. So right now, as of 2024, we have $70 billion in equipment and we have $50 billion in budgetary aid. And then $4 billion in humanitarian support. So in total, this is 128. Major spending in response to the war is 200 billion total. Okay. Let's just call it 300 billion. So a third of it is weapons and equipment. And then and this is since 2022, annual US federal budget is $7 trillion. In fiscal year 2024, the U.S. federal government spent $7 trillion, with $5 trillion financed by federal revenues and the remaining amount financed by borrowing, resulting in a deficit. Holy fazoli, $7 trillion. I grew up in a time where $4 trillion was a lot of money. Good God. All right. So we have 300 billion out of 7 trillion. We're going to have to get our zeros right, chat. So let's pull up a calculator. So we got 300,000 million billion divide by 7,000 million billion trillion 0.04, and then this is over the course of 4 years as well. So I should actually, sorry, I should restart. 200 billion. Did he say 3? Let's just round it up to 3. That's 300 million. That's 300 billion. Divide by. So let's just round it for the sake of it. Let's just call it 6 trillion. Okay. 6 times 2022. That's 3 years. All right. So that's $18 trillion. So 18,000 18,000 million billion trillion. 1.5%. So 1.66% of our total budget went to demolish, like aiding a foreign country that's fighting for principles that we care about. And it went to destroying one of our rivals in them doing something horrid. And half of it was equipment that was already purchased. So this dude is full of baloney once again. It took me a while to get there, but we arrive at the same conclusion. Spending 1% of our budget, and realistically it's 0.5% because half of it is equipment that we already purchased. So spending 0.5% in order to take one of our rivals who's currently doing something evil, taking them down a peg, is absolutely something that I think the federal government should be responsible for.
That a peace treaty would go in the favor of Russia. And while I don't think, like, if we continue the support, the war will continue.
Big in Gaming says, breaking news, Trump is pausing the tariffs for 90 days and instantly the market is up 6%. I don't know. I wouldn't read too much into that, Big in Gaming, only because that did happen yesterday with somebody doing a tweet about that. And then as a result, the market went up 6%. So it could be another like silly game, silly goobers being gooby. But let's see if there's anything substantive after this. So he's already being an a-hole, and he's already saying 300 billion, lot of money bad.
Continue, and that's more lives being lost. I just think that it's a hard middle ground to find, and I feel like Trump, especially with the meeting with Zelensky, just to the world shows more of a support to Russia than previous administration.
So let me tell you how we view it. We thought Zelensky was completely out of line. By the way, do you like my Zelensky outfit, everybody? What do you think?
Holy crap, these people are all morons.
I meant no disrespect
I love you, college
to the
students.
University of Tennessee, but I thought I'd do my best Zelensky outfit. I'm a little taller, though, don't you think? I'm a little taller than Zelensky. I'm giving you a hard time. First and foremost, I won't nitpick too much, but I will say, if you do go into the Oval Office, you should wear a suit and tie. That's my own personal perspective. I understand his country's at war. That's just a little bit of a nitpicking, I'll be honest. I think that if you go into the sacred, and I've had the honor to go in the Oval Office a couple times, I think you should dress up in a suit and tie. I think it's just a basic common courtesy. But that's not the bigger issue. The bigger issue is that Zelensky in that meeting, we believe, and I encourage you to watch all 40 minutes. You have, good. It started pretty tepid and then it heated up. And outside of Vice President Vance's back and forth on did you say thank you, there was this kind of insistence on Zelensky saying, no, we really don't want peace. We really don't like the idea of peace was almost a non-negotiable.
I mean, I think he views it. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's fine. Please.
I feel like he views it as a surrender, and I think that's a fair position for him to take.
Yeah, well, so he has a choice. So, and America then has a choice. So Zelensky can keep on fighting. Here's some facts. The average age of a Ukrainian military member is 43 years old. They have basically destroyed the young men of their country. There's hundreds of thousands of young men that have died, millions that have fled their nation. The average age is 43. So they're doing conscripts of people in their late 40s and early 50s to go to the front lines. It's a meat grinder. So he can keep that going, but for what? To win back some land that you may or may not win. Then it's America's perspective. We come at the perspective that, number one, blessed are the peacemakers. Number two, what is good for our own country? And the Russian-Ukrainian war has been bad for us at every turn. We're losing the US dollar as the world reserve currency status. It is getting us further and further away from having a back channel to Russia. It's actually put Russia and China closer together. And finally, the amount of money spent. You guys in this audience, you are going to inherit a nation that is $35 trillion in debt, where we are sending money overseas and not securing over our own citizens. Peace would then hopefully limit that from some permanency. And I'll just say one final thing, and we can, disagree on this. It's easy to say it's a surrender, but it would be a victory for the United States to say that we're no longer sleepwalking closer and closer to a thermonuclear war with Russia, because Russia is a nuclear armed power. And under Joe Biden, not under Trump, we had American-made missiles that were being launched into the interior of Russia. Imagine right now, everybody, if Russia was launching missiles into the interior of the United States. You opened up your question with a very fair, really good faith question. You said, why should we view Russia as an enemy? Let me give you more context to that. And I think this is where DC gets...
Dude, I feel like he's yapping. Like there's some good stuff in here, and I'm okay with that. But I think there's also a healthy chunk of fluff, okay? So the meat grinder that's killing hundreds of thousands of young men, I am actually entirely sympathetic to this perspective. As a matter of fact, I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to show you exactly what I would negotiate, even if the Ukrainians don't like it, okay? Ukrainian Google map. So this is my perspective, is that I do not think that Ukraine is getting back Donetsk, Luhansk, or Crimea. I really don't. If they had the military capacity to break through, they would. All right. Here's Donetsk. Here's Luhansk. The current military border between Ukrainians and Russians actually runs kind of right here. And then this is Zaporozhye and Mariupol. So what I would do if I was the Ukrainians, or let's say that I was president of the United States, is I would say that this area is majority ethnically Ukrainian. This is majority ethnic Russian, and this is majority ethnic Russian. And not only that, they might have had like fake elections, but they had fake elections where they voted to become a part of Russia. Okay, congratulations, you're a part of Russia. You get to go live in that S-hole, right? Crimea is so strategically important to the Russians that they're never going to give it up. They're going to fight to the last Russian in order to keep Crimea, okay? So what's going to happen, what I would do is I would say this is the new border. Luhansk, Donetsk, and then Ukraine gets Mariupol and gets Zaporozhye back in territorial concessions. We also get 45 days, 60 days in order for people to cross the border. So without repercussion. So Russians can't kill people who are in Eastern Ukraine who want to leave for Western Ukraine. And then Ukrainians can't kill people in Ukraine who want to go to Russia. Let the civilians go where they want to go. Let them choose their fate, right? And then after that, I would admit Ukraine to NATO. That's what I would do, straight up. Article 5, if the Russians invade Ukraine again, then they trigger all of Europe into a war. And to put that solely on the heads of Ukrainians, that they are sleepwalking us towards a nuclear war, How about Russia just stops, right? How about they negotiate with their neighbors? How about they negotiate economic and military alliances with their own neighbors? Nothing is stopping them from doing that. Nothing is stopping them from saying, hey, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, we know that you're paranoid about us invading. We're not going to invade. We're going to be friends now. And we're going to work together on economics, and we're going to work together on economics, and we're going to work together on military. So, we're never going to backstab you. We actually want to be friends. Same thing with Poland. Same thing with Ukraine. They could come to the table at any time and be peaceful. They just don't want to, because they want to be the big dogs on the block, right? So, fudge them is the best that I can say. Okay. NYC Falcon says, run for president. Hey, listen, once we get this stream up to a few thousand people and we're making tens of thousands of dollars per month off of ad revenue, and then as a result, I get to build science fiction guns, and then as a result, I become a minor E celebrity, why not? Let's run for Congress. Let's get a congressional seat. And then after we get a congressional seat, let's go to the White House. So I view this point as disingenuous. I view Russia and China as our rivals and potential enemies. That's not our choice. That's their choice. When it comes to the debt, I'll take the debt seriously when a Democrat doesn't have better records for reducing the fiscal deficit than Republicans do. Trump ran one of the worst deficits in American history in 2016 to 2020, and he's proposing to run one of the worst deficits in history right now, immediately after he supposedly made the government more efficient. He's not talking about taking that money and then balancing that budget. He's talking about taking that money that was allegedly saved from cutting Medicare, Medicaid, and all your social benefits, and then he's talking about doing tax cuts. So yeah, I'll take the debt seriously when Republicans do. How about that?
Things totally wrong. While I don't like Russia, I don't like Putin, it's not a free society, I have no plans to ever move there or compliment them, I do think it's kind of weird the amount of money and attention that Russia gets when almost nobody in this audience has a friend that you've lost to the Russian government, but you do have a friend or a family member that has died because of the cartels and the Chinese Communist Party, with a fentanyl coming into our communities. And so a nation has to choose which enemies are you going to focus on? Because we have a lot of them. Is it North Korea? Is it Iran? Is it Russia? Is it China? I think the Mexican drug cartels have done a lot more damage to the people of Tennessee alongside the Chinese Communist Party than the Russian Federation ever will. So therefore, end the war and focus on our true enemies, the Mexican drug cartels and the Chinese Party. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, but he's still a propagandist.